getting involved in production world and in the music and working with all those singers and bands, etc., is really that I just love music. I have a very, very high appreciation for music. I listen to music all the time. When my wife and I are going away, or even when we just go around to the store or whatever it is, there's always music playing in the background. There's always music in the house. Baruch Hashem, a few weeks ago, we were blessed with our first baby girl, and she also already listened to music more than the majority of our kids around. So as a little kid growing up listening to so many music, I started developing relationship with some singers. I used to go to weddings and I would see them singing, and I used to go to weddings and I would see the bands, and I started becoming friends with them. And with time, people started asking me which singer should they hire for what, or which band should they hire for what, or how should they do this wedding, or how should they do this production or this bar mitzvah. And that's how, with time, I got more and more involved in the production world, and I made some friends in the business, and they taught me a lot because I didn't know anything about it, and nobody taught me. Like, it wasn't like I going to school, like you guys are going to school now and you're learning. I don't know what it is you're learning this morning, but there was a program and you're studying from A to like, by me, it was very, very different. I had to figure it out as I was going. So I don't have like, oh, it happened one morning and I decided I'm going to be a producer, I'm going to be a music producer, or whatever it is. It just happened with time. I still have a lot of love for music, a lot of passion towards music, and I turned that into a little bit of a business. It's not my business. It's not what I do full time for a living. I'm actually doing real estate for a living, but it's something that with time became so big that as a side hobby, as something that I'm doing on the side, it became a beautiful thing to do. And the biggest thing I've ever done is the Hatzalah-Thon, which Chaim just introduced. And I'm sure some of you know all about it, or at least something about it. And this was a really, really once-in-a-lifetime experience to do. It took a week and a half. But in this week and a half, we walked like most people would walk during a 6 months time period, because we were a group of very, very devoted people who took this project, and we didn't do anything else for a week and a half. We literally did not sleep, or we barely ate anything, or we literally almost didn't see our families, our wives, our kids. And that's what we were doing the whole time. And I was lucky, I was really, really lucky that I had the best possible team that I was able to get for this program. Chony Milecki, for example, who's going to speak to you guys soon, is one of the people that I called, and I'm like, Chony, I need you to work on the content. I need you to work on the program. When you do a program like this, it divides to two different parts. There's the production aspect to it, like the staging, the lightings, the bands, the musicians, the singers, the hall, the decoration, the sound engineers, the security, the food that you need to get for the people, all many, many, many aspects, which if Chaim would like later, we'll talk a little bit more about. But then there is a whole nother area to it, which, like I said, I called Chony, and Chony called David Weinbaum, and then we got Shneur Najar and Shlomo Chaim Rifkin, other people who got involved to help us make what we say in Hebrew, toichen, to make content to this beautiful program. So usually when you go to a regular concert, you have the singer, and the singer starts singing once. He starts singing one song, he moves to the next song, and another song, and another song. Sometimes he'll sing a slow song, and then start a dancing song, or a happy song, a sad song. Here, the idea was that the songs, the music, was a part of the program. So if, for example, somebody would sing, there would be a video showing a kid misses his father when his father going on an Hatzalah call, which is something that, I don't know if any of your parents is in Hatzalah, but it's something that it could be very, very big for kids. They're sitting around the table for a Friday night, and all of a sudden the father needs to go on a Hatzalah call. And for the kid, this could be unpleasant at times. So we sang a song right after about the connection between the father and son, or about how the mitzvah is more important. So this was that part, the Chony, together with Eli Marcus and other people under his umbrella were doing, and that was their mission. My mission, once I got these people to do their part, I was just making sure that all the parties, all the different moving pieces are in sync. So there were about 30 different companies, and each company was doing something else. And they all had to understand each other, know exactly what goes what, and more importantly, what goes when. So if we count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we say cue to a video, the people on the stage need to know that it takes 3 more seconds, and then they still being, there's a lot of moving pieces that everyone needs to be in sync. Chaim.
I want to just mention, in case anyone here doesn't realize, the Hatzalah-Thon was watched. If you look up the stats, it was watched by 1.2. I'm not going to say people. Had 1.2 million views. Now, a view is a device or a computer, meaning when you have a family, which is probably most of the viewers, that are sitting there with 3, 5 people in front of the computer, the kids, the parents, that equals they had millions and millions of views. It was crazy. They brought in $15 million. They had every one of the top Jewish singers on there, and it was just a crazy, crazy thing. Davidi, you mentioned you did 6 months of work in about a week and a half. How much sleep did you get on average in that week and a half?
I don't know if at all, but I definitely, it's very, very important. And I once watched an interview with Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a very big role model. And he was saying that every night he's trying to get at least 7 hours of sleep. So I do try to get at least 7 hours of sleep. During this week and a half, it was impossible, but at least 5 hours in order to be able to function. And these hours of sleep needed to be during the night. By 2 a.m., I shut down my phone, no matter what happened. I put my phone on a night mode, and I don't touch my phone past 2 a.m., no matter how urgent, or how crazy, or how emergency, or how critical the questions that I had was. Now, let me explain to you something. When you do a project like this, first of all, Chaim was saying about the 1.2 or 1.4, depends exactly what time of the day, million devices that were watching it live. What is important to remember is some of those devices were around the world, not only in the United States. So for example, we were streaming it from New York, but the people in California were 4 hours behind us. But also we had people in Switzerland and in all over Europe, basically. And we were streaming it live in the radio in Israel and on all the biggest Jewish websites in Israel. We're talking about millions of people who were either listening to it or watching it. We also had a telephone system that people who don't have internet at home could call in and hear the concert and hear the fundraiser and get united with the rest of the millions who were watching it. So part of the work was not only in my time zone. When I would go to sleep, let's say, realistically speaking, I would try to go to sleep at about midnight. This was already a morning in Israel. So now that it's a morning in Israel, the people in Israel had some questions for me. So I needed to be up for the first few hours of the morning in Israel. So for example, one of the things that I think you guys would enjoy hearing about is that whoever of you watched that Hatzalah-Thon would notice that on the screen there was a bar with the amount of donations, the total amount, and the people who were sending donations. So let's say Chaim was writing a check or was putting his credit card to Hatzalah of Philadelphia. So it would show on the screen, and everyone around the world would see that Chaim donated $100 to Hatzalah of Philadelphia. So this program is something that we created specifically for this event. It's never done in this scale before. But what you got to understand is the people donated in Philadelphia. We had to somehow, within less than a second, send this information. It's an internet program that sends this information to the person who's sitting in Israel, in Lud, and he over there punching it into the numbers, to the computer, and sends it back to us in New York. We put it on the screen at the show, in the studio, and then you see it on the screen at home, wherever you are in the world. So all those things takes a lot of coordination and a lot of very, very, I want to say 100% focused. You need to be 100% on it because it's a matter of less than a second. You need to take an information from here, put it in here and send it back almost 3 times. Send it from the person to New York, from New York to Israel, from Israel to New York, and from New York to wherever you are again in the world. Things like that were very, very complicated and sophisticated to do. But again, like I said before, thank God that I had the absolute best team of very, very talented, amazing people who each one of them did something that originally I had no idea about. I did not know anything about how to do these things. But what I did know is that I have who to ask. And I went and I asked, and I was not shy, and I didn't understand the language, the technicality language. So when these people, when these professionals, those engineers, when they talk between themselves about certain parts of the production, certain parts of the program, certain codes, not only did I not know what they were talking about, I didn't even understand what this was in reference to. I didn't even understand when somebody is telling me a VTR, or somebody is telling me some names of cables that they need to connect. I had no idea what they were talking about. As much as I had experience with productions and I had experience with some concerts before, it was never to this scale. But I made it very, very clear to everyone. And we had many, many Zoom meetings like the one we have right now. And I told everyone, guys, please educate me. Please tell me. I do not know the answers to everything. Please help me understand. And once I understand, I can tell you as the producer what my vision would be, how things should sync one with each other.
Wow. Okay, I want to just tell everyone before we continue, Davidi would love to answer your questions. If anyone has questions, I saw a few people asked in the chat. Please enter your questions in the chat and we will make sure we get them answered. Davidi, I want to just touch on for a second. I saw the day of the concert, and I'm sure, like you were saying, you were of the craziest, busiest time of your life, that there was a picture going around that you were putting on tefillin with one of the staff there.
Right.
I think this is a theme you try to usually go with. Can you tell us about that for a second?
Right. So I'll tell you the little bit of background of it, and hopefully that would help you understand the rest of it. So to be honest, I'm not exactly sure which school you guys are and who exactly am I talking to, but I am very proud of Chabad Lubavitch guy, and I grew up in Israel. So when I grew up in Israel, my dream was to go on shlichus, to be a Chabad house, to be a rabbi somewhere. My older brothers are all on shlichus. My brothers are rabbis of places, etc. And I really, really wanted to go on shlichus. However, life didn't exactly send me that way. And I happened to move to New York, and then I started working in New York, and I settled in New York, and I met my wife here, etc. But I always wanted to have a good excuse to whatever it is business that I'm involved with, that it should still have somewhat relation to shlichus, to be Mekar Yudin, to do things that would make the Rebbe proud. So I decided that wherever I go, to any business meeting I go, if I go, like I said, I do real estate, so if I go to show a building or to show somebody an apartment, I always try to have it filling with me. And whenever I have a Jewish client or Jewish somebody that I deal with, I always politely, respectfully ask him to put into filling. So I have an Instagram account with many filling that I put on people. And when I had the chance to do the same in the production world, and one of the people who was involved in our production was a Jewish guy who was willing to put into filling, I right away put into filling with him. We were wearing masks, and we tried to maintain the social distancing, and etc. But it was very. I think Ben Sissa's son, who was in charge of our social media, got a video of it, and this video went viral. But it's very, very important to me that everywhere that I go, if I have the opportunity or the possibility to put on the filling with someone, or to give someone a few words of spiritual inspiration, to try to take advantage of that and do that. So this happened in the production as well.
Wow, that's fascinating. So you're basically doing a shlichus while you're working at the same time.
Right. So when we spoke about it multiple times with other friends around, we came to the conclusion, which I think it's important for you all to hear. A shlichus is not only where you are, but it's more importantly who you are. So you can be in Zimbabwe and do shlichus, and it's beautiful and it's really, really respectful. But you could also be at home and do the same concept of shlichus, because that's who you are, and that's just as important.
You not only that, you have more access. You can reach people that other people can't reach with all of your connections and all that you're involved in.
Right.
Tell us what is the coolest moment you've had working in Jewish music, whether it's from the Hatzalah-Thon, from one of the other concerts. Davidi also produced the Hatzalah concert, the CO Alive concert last year, and the Soul to Soul concert, which happened. Tell us, what was your coolest moment? You're like, wow, like this is insane.
It's interesting. I was just asked a similar question. We were doing an interview for a newspaper that comes out this Shabbos, and he asked me what was the most moving moment in the Hatzalah-Thon for me. So I was giving him two moments that I think I'll take with me forever. One of the stories that got the Hatzalah-Thon to be is the story of the Sefer Torah from the Baal Shem Tov. That the Baal Shem Tov, there was a Mageifa during the time of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov said, in order to stop the Mageifa, you need to start writing a Sefer Torah. So there were three people in Crown Heights, Beryl Unick, Shlomi Grunwald, and Zami Cohen, who decided that they're going to sponsor a Sefer Torah to stop the Mageifa. And they took upon themselves to reach to every single Jew around the world in order to get them to write a letter in the Sefer Torah, to buy, not to buy by money, but to spiritually purchase a letter in the Sefer Torah and stop the Mageifa. The Rebbe said multiple times that in order to buy a letter in the Sefer Torah, you actually need to pay something for it, even if it's just a few cents, even if it's just $1. So people did pay for this Sefer Torah. And then they reached out to me. They wanted to advertise about this campaign. They want to get to Israel. They want to do a big shturim about it. They want every single Jew in Israel, every single Jew in the world to purchase a letter in this Sefer Torah. And the Sefer Torah really, really made miracles. People who were in the hospital and they were really, really bad situation, they brought a letter in the Sefer Torah. The next day they already felt better. They have stories, crazy, crazy stories. One of the people who had such a crazy story is the Chazan Nishmeir Hefgot. I don't know which one of you know Chazan Nishmeir Hefgot. He is world renowned. Chazan is probably the biggest Jewish Chazan in today's generation. And he was really, really sick. And people were losing hope. And he's very close friend with the singer Avram Fried. And he called Avram Fried and they spoke. And Avram Fried, who's a very close friend with Shlomi Grunwald, told him, listen, my neighbor, my personal friend, Shlomi Grunwald, is doing a Sefer Torah together with Beryl Unick and Zami Cohen, and this Sefer Torah is really, really making miracles. It's really incredible what this is doing. So they ran quickly right away. They bought a letter for Chazan Helfgot in the Sefer Torah. And guess what? How not surprised are you that Chazan Helfgot started feeling much better? And not only did he feel better, shortly later, he got out of the hospital. So when we started working on this event, and again, Shlomi Grunwald started telling me, I want this guy to sing, I want that guy to sing, I want you to do this, to do that. And then Shlomi said, listen, let's get Chazan Helfgot to sing a song because he has a story with the Sefer Torah, which really started this whole Hatzalah-Thon, this whole thing really started because of the Sefer Torah. So my friend in Israel, Shlomo Chaim Rifkin, who was doing all the beautiful videos that you watched, and he was the person behind all these stories, made a video of Chazan Helfgot talking about the miracle that happened to him with the letter in the Sefer Torah. And we were showing this video in the studio where the concert was. And Avram Fried just finished his part on stage. He was just done singing. And he was coming to leave stage. But right then, we started showing the video about Chazan Helfgot. And in the studio, we had a very, very big TV screen that you see not only the people in the studio, you also see the what's called in professional language, the VTR. You also see the videos that you at home were watching. And Avram Fried all of a sudden see on the screen, he sees Chazan Helfgot started talking. So he listened. And he listened to Chazan Helfgot saying the story. I was in the hospital. I wasn't feeling well. Avram Fried called me, told me to buy a letter. The letter made me feel so much better. Avram Fried is about to move, to leave the area, to stop watching, to go to his room where he had his lounge to wait for the next segment. And then on the screen, all of a sudden, he sees himself. And he sees himself talking about Chazan Helfgot. And you can see that he felt a little bit uncomfortable because if you know him, he's a very simple person. He doesn't like the cover. He doesn't like the publicity. He's really just doing it just because that's his shtichas. That's what he's doing as a singer. But in his private life, he's a very, very private person. You can almost see how uncomfortable he feels. And then Chazan Helfgot walked into the room. Because of the corona, they couldn't hug each other. But you will see how happy they were in this moment and the emotions in the room, something I don't think anyone was able to tell from the videos, but how emotional this was in the room to see them meeting each other again after going through this experience and watching themselves telling this story on the video and all of a sudden standing in front of everyone on the stage together was very, very, very emotional. And I think this was one of the most moving moments for me from behind the scene, regardless if I was the producer or not. I think anyone who knows this story understands how moving this was.
Wow, Davidi, thank you so much for taking the time to do this here today. I really appreciate it.
No problem. So Chony will take you from here. He will tell you everything you need to know about how to make such a beautiful program. We call it minute to minute. In a program like this, every little minute is calculated, is planned in advance, and to every little minute, there is about 20 different people who need at the same time to be ready to press play to the next minute, or to be ready on stage, or to be ready with the lightings, or to be ready with the video camera, or to be ready with anything it is. Every minute, everything needs to be synced together. So Chony's going to take it from here and tell you all about it.
All right, I just want to before I introduce Chony, I just want to say there's a certain legend in Pittsburgh. If you ever spent an hour or two in yeshiva schools of Pittsburgh, you definitely heard the name Shmuel Yanevish. And Shmuel Yanevish, for those who didn't know, got married last night. So I'm messaging Chony today to prepare for today, like back and forth, and he's like, "Sorry, I can't talk. I'm by a wedding." And I was like, "Chony, I didn't say this, but if not for coronavirus, you would have had this entire Zoom meeting at the wedding last night." Everybody here was very close with Shmuel Yanevish, and they all still love him very much. So you should know, it's just Chony, because you played by his wedding, the wedding of a legend, that automatically makes you a legend. Forget the whole Hatzalah-Thon. Okay.
Thank you very, very much.
Tell us something. Tell us about working on the program for the Hatzalah-Thon.
Sorry, firstly, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry, what was the question?
First, if you wanted to say something about Shmuel Yanevish, but the question was to walk us through what you did for the Hatzalah-Thon.
Okay, so I think Davidi summed it up pretty well. Davidi was the producer, and I was the content director. I think the best way to sum up the difference between what Davidi did and I did, and what Davidi spoke about and what I'll speak about, is that every person has a guf and a neshama, and the guf is the body, and the neshama is how we animate ourselves, what we do. And in the terms of the Hatzalah-Thon, the guf was the production. You had a ridiculous amount of production. Davidi started telling you about some of the things that he did, but it doesn't even touch the surface of the detail of what's required to put on a project like this. It's so much that it's mind-boggling. It's very, very hard, even if you're the producer, to keep track of everything, and Davidi managed to do that. So in other words, what's the guf? What's the body of the Hatzalah-Thon? The performers, right? All of the amazing performers, and a crazy amount of some of the top performers in Jewish music. You have the sound systems, you have the lighting systems, you have the staging, you have the video wall. Now, what Davidi didn't tell you is that all of the pictures that you saw on the back of the video wall were actually being live streamed from Israel, which is a technical feat that is absolutely crazy. There's the cameras, there's the live streaming, there's the social media, there's the security, as Davidi said, there's the food, and these are all the things that he took care of. I'd like to even go a bit further. We had something there which was very necessary, but something that you never knew about. Didn't even rely on the electricity in the room. Right, so the producer, part of what he does is he has to prepare for failure. And so the way that he did that is we brought in a generator. And this generator ran the entire project. We didn't rely on any electricity from the room. More than that, we didn't even rely on the internet. We brought our own internet truck. So this is and this internet truck, it has all these redundancies. So let's say the internet fails this way, then we can get to the internet in a different way. There's many, many different ways to get to the internet. So that's all the guf, that's the stuff that Davidi took care of. Then you have the neshama. That is, okay, so we have an amazing body of production right now. How do we make this personal? How do we make this engaging? How do we make this meaningful? How do we make people want to give money, and not just once, but again and again, to this amazing organization? So when Davidi originally called me and offered this to me, my gut reaction was, nah, this is crazy. To pull this off in 10 days, by the time he called me, there was only about 10 days left. to pull this off in 10 days makes no sense. And I know that if I take the job, that I won't have a life for the next 10 days. My family won't see me. I won't be sleeping. I'm going to lose weight. And I did. I lost 10 pounds in that week. So thank you, Davidi. So I knew that that it's going to be extremely difficult to do it now. But I took the job. Why? Because firstly, I never say no to a challenge, and this is the ultimate challenge. And secondly, because the immediate thought that I had in my mind, the immediate thought is, what would the Rebbe want me to do, and how can I make this something that the Rebbe would be proud of? And once I took on the job of doing the content and putting together the program, the first thing I did before I opened the spreadsheet, anything, the first thing I did is I called up. I said, "Listen, I'd like to go with you to the Ohel. Try to keep our distance. We'll go in the car, but I would like to go with you to the Ohel. Firstly, to get a bracha for the success of this, because we really are going to need the bracha. And secondly, discuss and brainstorm what is the tochen, what does the Rebbe want from this project." And we sat it was on Sunday, 2 Sundays before the event. And we sat for that day probably for 4 or 5 hours brainstorming what's this opportunity we have over here, and how can we make the most of this opportunity to make the Rebbe proud. And the reason, look, it's a Hatzalah-Thon. Why are we trying to make the Rebbe proud? Shouldn't we just be trying to raise money? But my strong belief was that the best way to engage people and the best way to make people want to give is actually by doing it through the tochen of the Rebbe's vision. And the opportunities that we had were incredible. Just think about the hashgacha pratis. Just think about the hashgacha pratis of what we had for this Hatzalah-Thon. Number one, what does Lag BaOmer celebrate? Lag BaOmer celebrates the ending of the pandemic of Rabbi students, right? Could this be a better time? That's number one. Number two, this whole thing started. What is Hatzalah all about? In other words, what was the solution to the pandemic? How did Rabbi Akiva's students stop dying? It was because they had Avas Yisrael. And then you take the fact that this whole thing started because of a Sefer Torah, which the whole idea of a Sefer Torah, that each person is a letter in the Sefer Torah, and if one letter is missing, one letter is cracked, the Sefer Torah is puzzled. That is the message of Avas Yisrael, that every single person counts. And then what is Hatzalah? Hatzalah aren't just ordinary people. They're not just, we all have Avas Yisrael. All of us have done a favor for a friend, right? But do you keep your radio on like Hatzalah does in the middle of the night? And do you run out of your bed at 3 o'clock in the morning to help a fellow Jew? Do we, while we're eating dinner with our family, do we run out to help a fellow Jew? I even heard a story this week. There was and he was in an interview and he had to put on a good show to get the job. And in the middle of the interview, an emergency call, so he left the interview, and he didn't get the job because the guy said, "I need a guy who can stay over here." But what was this Hatzalah guy doing? His Avos Yisrael came first. So the hashkach of doing a Hatzalah-Thon, where you have these guys who are doing amazing on the same day of Lag BaOmer, which celebrates Avos Yisrael, and that was inspired by a Sefer Torah, which is the idea of Avos Yisrael, and it's happening on Lag BaOmer, which celebrates the end of a pandemic that we're in right now. It was just too perfect not to be able to fill this up with tochen. And so I think that we covered a lot of the different mitzvahim while we did this campaign. So for example, the obvious one is we did mitzvah tzedakah, right? Because people gave tzedakah. Every person who gives tzedakah, it's a big mitzvah. Now, we could say, okay, so they would have given tzedakah anyway, but it's not true. One of the things that we did, and I was one of the hosts on Tuesday, I was a host. We encouraged people, don't just give tzedakah. Get your children to give tzedakah, even if it's just $1. Put your child in front of the computer and show him how to give the tzedakah and let him give it from his own money. Why? The extra dollar that the kids give has really helped us, but it's the mitzvah of tzedakah. So that's one of the mitzvahs that we did. The other mitzvah is Ois B'Sefer Torah. Any person who gave a donation, automatically, while you're giving the donation, part of that was buying a lev Sefer Torah. So another one of the Rebbe's mitzvah. Another mitzvah is mitzvah Ahavas Yisrael, right? It's a mitzvah that maybe the main mitzvah is that we should show love for our fellow Jew, and that's one of the main topics that we constantly, again and again and again, we're bringing up the achdus of Yidden. Then we put on what I think is the greatest Lag BaOmer parade of all time, because I spoke to different people from the NCFJE and from Tzivos Hashem beforehand, and they weren't planning to do anything. They couldn't get permission from police to do a proper Lag BaOmer parade on the street. They couldn't even get permission to have trucks just driving around the community after each other because the police were afraid people would come out. And they were basically not going to do anything. And here was the opportunity to really make a Lag BaOmer parade that wasn't just a compromise. It was better than anything that had ever been seen before. And then, of course, we had Mitzvah Mashiach. One of the strong points that we brought out, both on Monday and on Tuesday, again and again and again, we brought out the idea that what is real Achdus? What is real Ahavas Yisrael? What is the real message of Hatzalah? It's Mashiach. That's the real idea of Achdus. That's the real, it's not just an Achdus between Jews. Let's have an Achdus between Jews and Hashem. Let's be one with Hashem. And that's something which is really what the Teichen was all about. And that really came through in all of our performances, in all of our songs, and the things that the host said, and the videos that we produced. And I was very, very proud to be instrumental in that section of the production.
Thank you, Chony. We have a couple questions for you from people. If anyone else has a question, make sure you put it in the chat. Mendel Gurevich is asking, where did the Hatzalah-Thon happen? Where is this amazing room with all the stages and lights? Where was that?
So people won't believe it. It's a room which many of you have probably been in. This was the Beis Rivka lunchroom, which is sometimes used as a wedding hall, but mostly it's not the nicest wedding hall in Crown Heights, so it's not used that much. It's a lunchroom, but you wouldn't have recognized it. You could not recognize it because not only were the stages and the lighting and the video walls put up, the walls were fully curtained off. You couldn't even see the walls. Even the floor was covered in carpet, so you couldn't even recognize it from the floor. The only way that some people figured it out was from the ceiling, because the ceiling happens to be a nice ceiling, so there was no need to cover that up. But yeah, it was the Beis Rivka lunchroom.
Okay, another question for you. Was there any point when you thought this is not going to work out? This is just not going to happen?
Not for a second. Not for a second. You can't.
The entire time.
What was that?
You were confident the entire time?
It's not even the word confident. We didn't think that way. We just knew that something had to get done, and we were there to do it. And we didn't think, is it not going to work? You don't have time to think of things like that. You just have to do.
Right. Another question for you, not only from Hatzalah-Thon, you've played at probably thousands of weddings, concerts as well. What was your coolest experience? Who's the coolest person you performed with? What was your highlight that you've had?
Oh, that's a tough one, because there's been too many. Look, I think that my highlighted experience was probably Hakel a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if you guys remember that. What we did is something completely unprecedented, and it really was the first real production that I was involved in. And there I was actually one of the producers, and it set me up to understand what is needed, even for the Hatzalah-Thon. In other words, if I hadn't done Hakel, I don't think I could have done Hatzalah. And I would wonder, maybe Davidi feels the same way, because Davidi also worked on Hakel. But I think that was for me, Hakel was definitely the biggest highlight for me, because I think I was in every aspect from beginning to end. We was also done it within 2 weeks. It's just in 2 weeks. But what we did over there, what was that?
I think you're getting used to working better on the fly than with preparation.
Let me tell you something. I don't think that if we had 6 months, we would have done a better job. Maybe a little bit, but not something that would have been completely different. Obviously, there was a thing here, a thing there that could have been perfected. But yeah, you're right. Working hard for this is very often you can accomplish what you can just working regular for 6 months. No question about it. But again, Hakel for me was a great experience and probably one of the great ones that will remain with me forever.
Okay, Chony, we have another question for you. This is a good question. I like this one. How did you manage? What was it like to get the timing exactly right? There was one point, I was watching it also, where Eighth Day was singing along with Benny Friedman and Avram Fried and Ellie Marcus. They were in New York. Eighth Day was in LA in their own studio. How did you, tell me how did that happen? How did you time that? How did it work out? How did you?
Right. Okay, so I'll tell you a little secret, which I really shouldn't say, but you've asked me a direct question and I don't want to mislead you. The entire production that you saw from Monday to Tuesday, everything was done live, but there was a couple of songs that were not possible to do live. And what we decided to do is during our rehearsal on Sunday, we pre-recorded a small number of. Now, the reason we needed to do that is because we realized that the technology of having Eighth Day singing in California and us performing here in New York actually doesn't exist. The technology doesn't exist. There would be delays and it wouldn't work. And there's what we call latency. And latency basically means you have a buffer where your video comes in and, so Zoom's actually pretty good, but in other words, we don't have a big latency, but we do have a latency even here. You're hearing me a split second after I'm talking. But to do that as a recording and to do it as a high quality recording, just the technology doesn't exist. But even doing it the way that we did it, where we had Eighth Day piping in for their song, and that was pretty much it. There wasn't everything. 99% of what you saw was live. But even doing it the way we did it is a massive feat. To be able to take a vocal that was recorded in a different city and then to have a band play together with it, together with other singers, is an extremely, extremely big feat, which we're very proud to have been able to pull that off.
Wow, that still sounds together exactly right. They were singing the same thing. They were merging songs.
Yeah, and you know what? It's good we did it because in rehearsal, the first time we did it, we had a mistake, which just goes to prove why we had to do it that way.
Right. There's another question. How did everybody stay apart, meaning with social distancing? How did they all 6 feet apart or whoever it was? How did everyone just stay separate? There was a band, there was a choir, there were the singers. How did you manage that?
Well, Davidi set up a stage that was enormous. It was, I think, about 70 wide. And it wasn't just the stage. It was, I think, Davidi said 14 stages. So each person had their own stage. They weren't even, the stages weren't even, so they couldn't even touch each other if they wanted. For the choir and the brass section, where you had 3 people on a stage, and the choir, I think, was 4 or 5 people, or maybe 6 people, I can't remember right now, on the stage. But even there was 6 feet difference. Listen, of course we had to have social distancing, but the social distancing is something that we're doing to protect our fellow citizens and our fellow Jews. And look how many people we lost. We lost some of our best and greatest people and leaders and friends during the last couple of months. So we didn't want to take any chances. But in addition to that, this is Hatzalah. The whole idea of Hatzalah is to make other Jews safe. So we knew that we had to be careful.
I got it. Last question I want to ask is just for me. Have you ever seen such a thing before? The Freilich band was playing not straight because there were small breaks, but basically the entire time without break. It's a workout. Has anything like that ever happened before?
I don't know if it's happened before, but I will tell you it's extremely difficult, and that most times the band would actually quit and they'd say, we're not going to do, we're done. I think the reason that didn't happen, and I happen to know some of the musicians on that stage. In fact, I know every musician on that stage, and I've worked with every musician on that stage. I have my own band, and I can tell you from experience that some of those musicians have told me, okay, I can't do any now. It's 5 hours, it's enough. But over here we did almost 12 hours straight, right? So but everybody in the room realized that this is something special, and no one wanted to be the person who's gonna break that up or to say I'm going home. In fact, everybody was very proud to be a part of it, and if it meant going an extra 4 hours, it stood the historic moment that was being created. And I mean, the Achdus was incredible. You saw that we raised $15 million, but to me, the amazing number is that we had over 80,000 donors. That is a very, very big number. I think it might be the biggest number that has ever been accomplished in a fundraiser in from Judaism and from fundraisers. I remember in charity a couple of years ago, they had a big news story because they had a fundraiser that had over 1,000 donors, and that was a big deal that they finally had a fundraiser with 1,000 donors, and we had 80,000 donors.
Right.
Well, it was quite incredible. Everyone realized that it was a special moment happening, and everyone did this at the end.
All right, we're gonna have to end it here so you guys can go back to class. Thank you so much, Chony and Davidi, for coming. We really appreciate it. We learned a lot. I personally really enjoyed. Guys, the presenters want your feedback. They want to know what you thought. I want to know your feedback. If you guys enjoyed it, we can hopefully do something like this again with obviously different presenters. Give Chony and Davidi a break, but please send me your feedback, send your rabbis your feedback, and they'll forward it. Thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Chony. Thank you, Davidi. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.